WWE Superstar Spotlight Series, episode number 5. Once again, we're talking about Hall of Famers, legends, if you will. We're talking about arguably one of the greatest tag teams of all times over the last 4 decades, from 1970 up to here 2018. We're talking about Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, the Rock and Roll Express. I can remember going to see the Rock and Roll Express back in the late 70s, early 80s, back in the days of the NWA, just before it started switching over to the WCW. And I can remember knowing that they were going to have the feud with the Midnight Express and Jim Cornette, which was Loverboy Dennis Condrey and Beautiful Bobby Eaton, or later on became to be Sweet Stan Lane and Beautiful Bobby Eaton. I knew that Jim Cornette was going to use that tennis racket to try to get the upper hand and try to get the heat, that good old heel heat. I knew that the Rock and Roll Express was going to perfect that double drop kick and get the 1, 2, 3, or they were going to lose the match. Either way you look at it, the Rock and Roll Express to me defines the tag team wrestling and what it's all about. Today, WWE doesn't really define the tag team wrestling very much. They got the buffoon New Day being the tag team champions on SmackDown these days, and it's a joke to WWE, the tag team division. But back in the late 70s, early 80s, in the days of the NWA and WCW, Smoky Mountain Wrestling is the actual Mid-South wrestling and stuff like that. Tag team wrestling was a great thing and was really taken seriously. But despite all the trials and hardships and different promotions that they were at, Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson always put on a hell of a show. Like I said, I always loved going to each and every month that I would go to the Canton Civic Center in Canton, Ohio, was where I usually see most of the matches. And I would love going to see the Rock and Roll Express and take on the Midnight Express, or sometimes they would take on the Russians, which is a very rare occasion. But they would take on the Russians sometimes. They would get their butts kicked. But nonetheless, they did what they had to do. And they're still wrestling to this day, ladies and gentlemen, the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson. I love going back and watching their old matches when they were in WWE. I loved watching some of their old classic matches here on YouTube of the days of Smoky Mountain and Mid-South and NWA and the early WCW. But like I said, it's great to know that the tag team division of professional wrestling back about some 10, 20 years ago, even 30 years ago, was actually better than what we see today. It wasn't what we see now that is laughable. The tag team division just really isn't taken seriously, in my personal opinion, when it comes to professional wrestling or quote-unquote sports entertainment. I just really think that tag team wrestling needs to be noticed again. It needs to be a great thing in wrestling, and it really needs to make a comeback. And I think that when it does, it'll help us, help those of us, who appreciate the tag team division, get back into it again. And those that are new and don't know what it's like to have tag team wrestling and how great the tag team wrestling was and how great professional wrestling was, to have that tag team feud, to have that tag team wrestling. Absolutely love the Rock and Roll Express. And I think that they will go down in history as one of the greatest tag teams in professional wrestling history. And they're already there in WWE Hall of Fame, but I think arguably they are the greatest tag team of all time. Thanks for watching. Wolfman Lewis. I am out.